We have 4 live cameras total on our bears here. We have 2 that show this pond area, and 1 on Holly's den, and 1 on another bear den. And so if you'd like to view those at any time, just head on to our website at www.bear.org, and there's a link that says live cameras, and you can view those anytime you would like. Alright, so for this enrichment program, it looks like our staff member has provided Holly with a log. Now this log has little holes drilled into it, and we have placed some sunflower seed and peanut butter over the top to keep the sunflower seed inside. And so as you'll see, our little yearling Holly has to figure out and move the tube around, use her tongue and nose to get the food out that she needs. Now the purpose of doing this is to not only let you folks see our bears and for us to feed them, but also to show off their simple problem-solving abilities and their paw dexterity, and for those of you on the deck, maybe to hear some vocalizations between our bears. Now little Holly Bear, she is about 19 months old, so she's not full grown. She's still a little girl. And she was born in the wild in Arkansas. She was separated from her mother in a wildfire, so she was orphaned as a cub. She was then found by the Arkansas DNR eventually, where they brought her to a rehab facility in Tennessee. And they attempted to rehab her to make her releasable back into the wild. However, this was not possible. And so little Holly here needed to find a forever home. And that home was the North American Bear Center. We received Holly December 27th of 2013, so she has only been here about 7 short months. But as you can see, she's becoming quite acclimated to our enclosure, and she's, I believe that staff member put in some food inside that hollow log, and Holly is still small enough where she can squeeze a little bit in there to get the food out. So that's our Holly girl. Now, right now she seems very calm, very at ease, and I would also like to point out that black bears have excellent senses of hearing and smell. And so those of you on the deck, she can smell every single one of you and hear even the slightest camera click or movement. And so that was actually very intimidating for little Holly when she first got here. She was actually in very rough shape. She had some skin conditions. She had some infections when we got her. And now, as you can see, her coat is nice and shiny and pretty. And we get asked all the time if we groom our bears. And the answer is no. We let them do their own grooming and let nature kind of take its course. And as you can see, Holly Bear's coat is nice and shiny and pretty right now. But it didn't look like that even a month ago. And so she's come a very long way. Now, one reason that Holly Bear has become so confident and comfortable here is because she bonded very strongly with 2 of our staff members. Now these 2 staff members we refer to as Mama 1 and Mom 2. And so through working with these 2 staff members, they put in hours of their time. They would go talk to Holly, they would play with her, and they were just very supportive of this little bear who was very scared and orphaned. She had a very traumatic beginning to life. And so through hours of their time they put forth, now you can see Holly is quite content. Oh, it looks like Honey Bear, our other female, is to the far right by our food shed coming out. Now Honey Bear, she is a North American black bear, even though she is a brown color. She is what is known as a cinnamon phase black bear. And this is pretty rare, especially in Minnesota. Only about 5% of black bears in Minnesota are this cinnamon phase. Now, even though it's referred to as a phase, Honey Bear will not phase in and out of this color. She will remain this beautiful red, brown her entire life. Oh, and there's Lucky making an appearance to the far right by our food shed. Now, Lucky Bear, He is our 7-year-old male, and he is a very good representation of male black bears on average in the wild. He's about 330 pounds, and he is just a comedian. He's very curious, he's very smart. And as you folks may notice, it looks like Honey Bear's taking off around the pond. And that's because each of our bears have very different and very strong personalities. Now, Honey Bear, our cinnamon-faced female, who is 18 years old, she's more introverted. She doesn't really like to be around other bears. She likes at least 30 feet between her and the other bears at all times. Now, when that space gets intruded, Honey will definitely let the other bears know. She'll be very vocal. And black bears have some pretty interesting vocalizations, and I'm sure you folks on the deck will hear some quite shortly. They like to huff and grunt. They click their tongues. They don't growl or bark, though, which is another misconception about black bears. They don't hiss or anything like that. They usually huff, grunt, moan, things like that. And we actually have a little panel. Oh, Honey's on the rock den, and she slapped the ground with one of her paws and huffed at Lucky, and Lucky could really care less. He's like, whatever. I don't care. And it looks like Honey's scooting around the pond now. Like, see you guys later. But anyway, like I was saying, we have a really cool panel inside on the wall by the theater of some black bear vocalizations. So you just press a button, and we have some live, well, not live, but actual recordings of what black bears sound like. And it's not really what you would think. Anyway, I will talk a little bit about Lucky's background. It's somewhat similar to Holly, our yearlings. Lucky was also born in the wild and was also orphaned at a very young age. Now, it was told to us that he was actually removed from his den by someone in Wisconsin. So a person actually went into a bear den and removed a cub, which was never a good idea. The DNR in Wisconsin eventually found this cub, and he was deemed as well unreleasable to the wild. Now, the North American Bear Center opened in 2007, and this is the same year that little Lucky needed a place to go. So it was very lucky that we could receive this bear, and very lucky for him that we had space for him. And so that's where Lucky gets his name, Lucky Bear. Honey Bear has a little bit different background. She was born in captivity on a game farm in Wisconsin. She was then purchased by some folks and lived there very happily for the first 10 or so years of her life. There was some change, and this party could no longer keep Honey Bear, and so she and our fourth ambassador bear, Ted Bear, who is not out in front right now, came to us in 2007 as well. So those are our 4 bears, Ted, Honey, Lucky, and Holly. And Ted Bear is actually in his separate enclosure. And any folks who can see Holly, she is climbing up the cedar tree in front. And this is just testament to how strong black bears are and how strong their claws are. Black bears have very sharp, curved claws. And many people are very intimidated by these claws because they think, oh, they're going to attack me, and the purpose of these claws are for hunting and getting prey. But it's actually just for what Holly's doing right now. It's for climbing trees to get food, or climbing trees to play, or climbing trees just to get away from something. And I believe on that platform it looks like we have some peanuts in the shell, some dried apricots, maybe some red grapes, so some of our bears' favorites. And black bears, they have to climb up head first, and they have to climb down tail first. They're not like squirrels, they have different hip placement actually. But Lucky and Holly, these two in front, they still climb trees, so Lucky is 330 pounds, and he'll still climb trees. And even these tiny little ones by our rock den, he will climb up those, and they'll be bending left and right, and it's like, Lucky, how are you not falling out of that or breaking this tree? But he does it all the time. All the time. I think they have a sixth sense about it. And the reason black bears are so well adapted for climbing is because their biggest defense mechanism in the wild is to climb. They run away. If they sense any type of danger, they will run first, climb up a tree, and ask questions later. And so from a very young age, black bears can climb very aptly up trees. And little Holly here, we've found her on numerous occasions actually up this. On the far left, there's a white pine that's half dead. On the top, it's the tallest tree to the left of the enclosure. And she'll be a good 40 feet up that tree and just sleeping. She'll be sprawled out over like 2 branches and fast asleep. I don't know how they do it, but they never fall out. So black bears love trees. They love climbing, but they also like the water. And our pond, we also get asked if our bears ever actually use this pond. And the answer is yes. All 4 of our bears swim and use this pond. Especially on days like today. It's a beautiful day here in Ely, Minnesota. Finally. And on days like today, I'm sure our bears will use and swim around in the water. They're just about starting to shed their winter coats. And that's why Lucky looks a little scraggly, because he's shedding that winter coat. And so right now, black bears still have 2 coats on, and they can get very, very, very warm. And swimming is a perfect way to cool off. I'll talk a little bit more about their diet. That's another question we get a lot, is what do black bears eat? And it's a very big misconception. A lot of people think black bears are carnivores, that they're hunters, that they're man-eaters, that they stalk prey, but none of those are true. Black bears are opportunistic omnivores. And so in the wild, what they eat consists of vegetation, so grasses, clovers, leaves, flower parts, along with fruits like berries. Our bears love berries. And nuts. Hazelnuts in Minnesota are very important for black bears because they're available late in the summer and a good source of fat. Another thing black bears love to eat are immature bee and ants. So pupae and larvae of bees and ants, because they're very high in protein. And only about 10% of a black bear's diet is protein, which is a pretty shocking percentage. And so to get that, they usually just forage for ants or bees. And when you see a black bear going after a beehive, it's usually not going for the honey. It's usually attacking the hive to get immature bees, because they're very, very high in protein. Now they are opportunistic, so let's say there's some remains of an animal like a deer or something, and a black bear gets a whiff of it, it will go and eat some meat that's left over. But they will typically not actively hunt down a deer, let's say. Here at the North American Bear Center, we feed our bears 5 times a day. In the morning, they get usually a head or 2 of romaine lettuce, along with some carrots and a raw egg in the shell. And our bears don't eat the shell. It's another question we get a lot. And Lucky here, he'll actually take it ever so gently and set it down on the ground and then press it down with one of his paws so it just cracks a little bit, and then he licks out the insides. So it's actually pretty funny to watch. And then throughout the day we have 3 enrichment programs like the one right now. And we provide a variety of different foods. We'll usually place in some dried fruit like cranberries, dried apricots, and a mixture of nuts like Brazil nuts or peanuts, unsalted of course, and put them in some sort of toy, or like here we put it in like a log. And so they have to manipulate the object to get the food out that they need. And like I mentioned before, that's just to stimulate their brain a little bit, and also to show off their problem solving and their dexterity. And then at dinner, we usually give them some more romaine lettuce, maybe a fruit like an apple. Our bears love avocados. Watermelon is another favorite. We have peaches and plums, kiwis. Honey Bear, our cinnamon-phased female, loves kiwis. And then we make a mixture of trail mix we call bear chow, which is usually sunflower seeds, peanuts, dried cranberries, and bear kibble. Bear kibble it pretty much just looks like dog food. It's a little bigger, and it's another source of protein. Now for those of you that can see over to the rock den where little Holly is, you'll notice a little ground squirrel. Those are Franklin ground squirrels. Another question that we actually had today by a few folks. But you'll notice that our bears just kind of leave them alone. They don't really care. They don't notice. We've even had ducks in our pond with babies, and Lucky will kind of swim towards them and see, like, what are you? What is that? And the mother duck will kind of flap her wings, and Lucky will go away. But there's snowshoe hares. We have a ton of birds and other wildlife in our enclosure, and our bears pretty much just leave them alone. But anyway, that's pretty much what a black bear eats. We also have wild foods we've planted in our enclosure. And this enclosure is about 2.5 acres, so it goes pretty far back. And beyond the pond, it's just pretty much dense forest and trees, which is ideal black bear habitat. But in there, we've planted a bunch of white clover, which is a black bear favorite, some ryegrass. We have a bunch of plants that produce berries. We have raspberries, choke cherries, sarsaparilla berries, all sorts of bear food that our bears do forage and eat. We've also seen Lucky and Holly forage for ants too. And that's basically what we feed them here at the North American Bear Center. And because we are their main food source, we actually weigh our bears every Tuesday. And so yesterday was weigh day, and we weighed all of our bears. And you may wonder, well, how do you weigh a bear? Well, our little wooden box down to the right, that is our scale. And usually if we call them, and yes, they know their names, and they know our voices, and they can actually discern who is calling them. And so I'm sure Lucky and Holly right now can hear my voice being projected. Like, oh, it's intern Liz, she's talking. All right, I know her. And they can associate that with food usually. And so let's say we wanted Lucky down by the scale. We would have a few staff members go down, call him, and place some food in the little trough in front. There's then a little monitor inside, and you can just read their weight. They need 4 paws on the scale, and then that's pretty much all you need. And we do weigh them because we just want to make sure they're not underweight or overweight. And because they do forage sometimes out in the enclosure, we need to make sure we're feeding them the right amount. Now it looks like Lucky and Holly are starting to play a little bit. Well, Holly is. And these two bears have a very positive relationship. Unlike Honey Bear, our cinnamon-faced female, she doesn't really want anything to do with these two. But Lucky and Holly, they love playing together. And Lucky is very strong, but he is very patient and very gentle with little Holly Bear. And so we're very happy to see these two interact in such a positive way. Oh, looks like Lucky might go for a swim. He's just kind of crawling down the falls, taking a little drink. But these two bears play all the time. They'll chase each other up and down trees. They'll play fight, and as you saw up to the left of the pond, Holly Bear stood up and kind of, we call her Ninja Bear when she stands up because she has her 2 paws out. Looks like a little ninja. We also think that these two playing together has also aided in little Holly's confidence. And so we're really happy she has a little friend. And that Lucky has someone to play with too. And with that, we'll have a few staff members walking around the exhibit hall to answer any questions. I would like to give a shout out to the Bear Study course that is here. It's their last day, so welcome Bear Study course participants. And also to our lily padders who are starting to show up. Woo. Please travel safe, and we can't wait to see you. I can't wait to meet all of you. And I hope the weather holds out. It's a beautiful day here in Ely, Minnesota. And for those of you folks here, I would just like to remind you that the pass you purchased today is a full day pass. So feel free to come and go as you please throughout the day. We have 2 more enrichment programs, one of them at 1 o'clock and another one at 4 p.m. And so you feel free to go into Ely and grab some food or do some shopping and then come on back. Otherwise, thank you so much for participating in our 11 o'clock enrichment program. And I hope you have a wonderful time in Ely and at the North American Bear Center. Thank you very much.